Victoria Ellington stood in the marble foyer of her $12 million Atlanta estate, watching the sixth nanny in 4 months walk out the front door without so much as a goodbye. The woman's heels clicked against the imported Italian tile like a countdown to something Victoria couldn't name. And upstairs, behind a bedroom door painted the color of a robin's egg, her 5-year-old daughter Amara sat in the exact same position she'd been in for 3 hours. Knees pulled to her chest, small brown hands pressed flat against the scar that ran down the center of her tiny ribcage. Victoria was worth $3.4 billion. She was the CEO of Ellington Aerospace, the first black woman to take a private spaceflight company public. She had negotiated with senators, outmaneuvered hedge funds, and buried her husband Elijah 11 months ago after a test flight accident that the NTSB was still investigating. She could do anything, except reach her own child. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Rachel Okonkwo, Amara's pediatric cardiologist. Victoria, she doesn't need the most qualified caregiver. She needs the safest one. And sometimes, the safest person isn't the one with the best resume. Sometimes, it's someone who's already been broken and put themselves back together. Because that person has stopped performing. Victoria read it twice. Then she grabbed her keys, told her security detail to stay behind, and drove herself, for the first time in 3 years, to a gas station on the wrong side of I-285. She didn't know why. She just knew that if she stayed in that house 1 more minute, she was going to break something that couldn't be repaired. And that's where she met him. A homeless black man, mid-30s, sitting on an overturned milk crate outside the gas station. Camo jacket, dog tags, hands folded in his lap like he was praying but had forgotten the words. Beside him, a cardboard sign that just said, "Corpsman, 2 tours, not asking for money, just a conversation." Their eyes met. And Victoria Ellington, a woman who had built an empire on the philosophy that trust is a liability, heard herself say something she would replay in her mind for the rest of her life. "I'll pay you $1,000 to watch my daughter for 1 day." The man looked up, didn't smile, didn't flinch, just said, quietly, "Ma'am, I don't need $1,000, but if your baby's hurting, I'll come." What happened over the next 14 hours would change 3 lives forever, and expose a secret about that homeless veteran that not even Victoria's billion-dollar background check firm could have uncovered. Because Marcus Boone wasn't just any homeless man, and Amara wasn't just any little girl. Victoria's mother, Eleanor Ellington, had been a federal prosecutor in Birmingham in the 1970s. A black woman in a courtroom full of white men who thought she'd wandered in from the janitor's closet. Eleanor had raised her only daughter on 1 commandment, repeated every morning before school like scripture. "Verify everything, Vicky. People will disappoint you. Contracts will not." Victoria had built her entire life on that sentence. Every contractor was vetted. Every employee had a background check deeper than a Senate confirmation. Even Elijah, sweet, warm, laughing Elijah, the test pilot she'd married against her mother's wishes, had been quietly investigated before their 3rd date. He'd found out on their honeymoon and laughed about it for the rest of their marriage. "You Googled me, baby?" he used to tease. "You Googled the man who's going to spend the rest of his life making you soft?" He never got the chance to finish that job. The C-17 test flight went down over the Pacific 11 months and 6 days ago. Amara had been 4. She'd been in the middle of open heart surgery when Elijah's plane hit the water, a congenital defect they'd caught during her pre-K physical. 2 hospitals, 2 crises. 1 phone call from Victoria's assistant that Victoria still couldn't remember without her hands shaking. "Ma'am, it's about Mr. Ellington. And also, Dr. Okonkwo needs you at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta immediately." Amara had come out of surgery to a mother who couldn't stop crying and a father who never came home. For 11 months, the little girl hadn't hummed, hadn't sung, hadn't touched the piano her father had bought her. She flinched every time someone got near her chest. She woke up screaming at 3:47 a.m., the exact time of Elijah's crash, every single night. 6 nannies, 2 child psychologists, 1 art therapist, a specialist flown in from Zurich. Nothing. And now, Victoria was driving a homeless Navy corpsman named Marcus Boone through the gates of her estate, watching in her rearview mirror as he stared at the 16,000-square-foot house like it was a museum he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. "You don't have to be nervous," she said. Marcus didn't turn his head. "Ma'am, with respect, I've been shot at in Fallujah, pulled kids out of a burning apartment building in Detroit, and slept on a bench in 20-degree weather 3 nights ago. I'm not nervous. I'm just paying attention." Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She didn't know why, but that sentence hit her harder than any pitch deck she'd ever seen. Paying attention. When was the last time she had done that? They sat across from each other in Victoria's kitchen, an $8,000 Italian marble island between them, a bowl of untouched strawberries between them, and something else between them that Victoria couldn't name. She slid a folder across the marble. Non-disclosure agreement. Standard. There are 47 cameras in this house. You'll be recorded from the moment you enter my daughter's wing to the moment you leave. I need to know 3 things. Your full name, whether you have any criminal record, and why a Navy corpsman is sleeping on a bench in Atlanta. Marcus didn't touch the folder. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Victoria felt something she hadn't felt since Elijah died. The sensation of being seen, not scanned. Marcus Deshaun Boone, born in Mobile, Alabama, 1990. Enlisted in the Navy at 19. Hospital corpsman, 2 tours, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. Honorable discharge, 2016. No criminal record, never been arrested. Never even had a parking ticket. He paused. As for why I sleep on a bench, my wife Denise and my son Malik died in a house fire in 2021. I was working a shift at Grady Memorial. Came home to find 7 neighbors saved and my family gone. I sold the house, sold the car, sold everything. Been walking ever since. Not because I'm lost, ma'am, because I'm looking. Victoria's throat went dry. Looking for what? Marcus finally picked up a strawberry, turned it in his fingers like it was a small red planet. For the next person who needs me. That's all I do now. I show up where I'm supposed to. And when I'm done, I leave. He set the strawberry down. Ma'am, your baby doesn't need a resume. She needs a person. If you don't want me to be that person, I understand. I'll walk back to the gas station. But if you do, I need you to promise me one thing. What? Don't interrupt us. Not through the cameras, not through the intercom, not through the door. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, you let me finish. Because if you pull me out in the middle of it, you'll set her back 6 months. And I don't think either of you can afford that. Victoria stared at him. Every instinct her mother had drilled into her, verify, 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 was screaming at her to send him away. But there was another voice, quieter, older. Her father's voice, dead now for 15 years, whispering something he'd told her once when she was 7 and had refused to hug her uncle at a family reunion because he smells like the outside. Baby girl, not everyone who looks scary is dangerous, and not everyone who looks safe is kind. You listened to the part of you that knew the difference before the world taught you to be afraid. Victoria pushed the folder back toward Marcus. You don't have to sign it. Just tell me one more thing. Have you ever taken care of a child before? Marcus Boone smiled for the first time. It was a small, sad, beautiful thing. Ma'am, I've held 43 dying men in my arms. I've delivered 2 babies in a Humvee. I raised my son Malik from the day he was born to the day he turned 3. Yes, I have taken care of a child before. Victoria stood up. Her name is Amara. She's 5. She had open-heart surgery 11 months ago. Her father died the same day. She hasn't spoken more than 4 words at a time since. Please don't hurt her. Marcus stood too. Ma'am, nothing on this earth could make me hurt that little girl. Now, where is she? Amara's bedroom was designed by a Manhattan firm that had won 3 international awards for it. Robin's egg walls. A canopy bed shaped like a swan. A private reading nook. A bookshelf carved from reclaimed church oak. Everything a little girl could dream of. She hated it. She was sitting in the corner between the bookshelf and the window, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped around her legs, staring at the floor. She had 2 thick black braids, a purple pajama set with tiny cartoon rockets on it, a gift from Elijah, 6 months before he died, and a small crescent-shaped scar peeking above the collar of her pajama top. Victoria opened the door. Baby, this is Mr. Marcus. He's going to sit with you today. Mommy has to work. I'll be downstairs. Amara didn't look up. Marcus stepped into the room slowly. He didn't say hello. He didn't crouch down. He didn't do the thing every nanny had done, that fake bright voice, that plastic smile, that "Hi, sweetie," that Amara had learned meant, I need you to perform being okay so I can feel better. He just walked to the reading nook, sat down on the floor, not the chair, pulled a small, worn paperback out of his jacket pocket, and started reading. Silently. Amara peeked at him from under her lashes. Marcus didn't look up. 10 minutes passed. 15. Downstairs, in her home office, Victoria watched the security feed on 4 different monitors. Her CFO, Priya, was on hold on line 2. Her board chair was texting about the quarterly earnings call. She ignored all of it. She watched a homeless veteran read a book. She watched her daughter watch him. At the 22-minute mark, Amara stood up. She didn't walk to Marcus. She walked to her bed, picked up a stuffed elephant named Tembo, a gift from her grandmother Eleanor, who had died 2 years ago, and walked halfway across the room. She sat down again, cross-legged, about 6 feet from Marcus. Marcus turned a page. Amara set Tembo down in front of her, like an offering. Marcus glanced at the elephant, just once, then went back to reading. At the 41-minute mark, Amara scooted closer. 3 feet away now. At the 58-minute mark, she was sitting beside him. Not touching, just there. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was low, warm, unhurried, like a river you could hear from far away. This book is about a little boy whose heart got hurt. Not the outside kind of hurt, The inside kind. You ever heard of that kind of hurt, little sister? Amara didn't answer. Marcus turned another page. Yeah, me neither. Grown-ups don't like to talk about it much. Amara, very slowly, nodded once. Downstairs, Victoria Ellington pressed her hand against her mouth and started to cry. At 11:47 a.m., Marcus stood up and stretched. He looked at Amara. Little sister, I don't know about you, but I'm hungry. You hungry? Amara didn't answer. That's okay. I'm gonna go to the kitchen and make me a sandwich. If you want one, you come find me. If you don't, that's okay too. But I make the best peanut butter sandwich in the state of Georgia. I'm not bragging. It's just science. He walked out of the room without looking back. Amara sat frozen for 90 seconds. Then she stood up, picked up Tembo, and walked, barefoot, quiet as a shadow, to the kitchen. Victoria watched from her office, hand still pressed against her mouth. In the kitchen, Marcus was standing at the $8,000 marble island, spreading peanut butter on wheat bread with the concentration of a surgeon. Amara stopped in the doorway. Marcus didn't turn around. You take jelly, little sister? Or you a purist? Amara stared. Marcus glanced over his shoulder. Grape or strawberry? Amara's mouth opened, closed, opened. Strawberry, she whispered. It was the first word she had spoken to a stranger in 11 months. In the office, Victoria Ellington slid off her chair and onto the floor and put her forehead on the hardwood and sobbed like a woman who had just been told her daughter was going to live. Marcus made the sandwich. He cut it into 4 small triangles, not squares, because Amara's father Elijah had always cut them into triangles, and Marcus, of course, could not have known that, but somehow did. He set the plate on the kitchen table. Then he cut an apple into slices, and with a paring knife, he shaped one of the slices into a tiny bunny with ears. He set the bunny on the plate. That's for you, little sister. The bunny's name is Herbert. Herbert doesn't like being alone, so if you're gonna eat him, you gotta eat him with a friend. That's the rule. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. Amara, for the first time in 11 months, smiled. It was small. It barely moved her face, but it was there. She climbed onto the chair. She looked at the sandwich. She looked at Herbert the bunny. She looked at Marcus, and she said, "Can you sit with me?" Marcus Boone, who had held 43 dying men in his arms and buried his own son, pulled up the chair across from a 5-year-old girl and sat down. Yes, ma'am, I sure can. At 1:14 p.m., Victoria's phone rang. It was Priya Kapoor, her CFO. Board call in 15 minutes. Victoria answered on speakerphone while still watching the kitchen monitor. Priya, push it. Vic, we can't push it. Sinclair's already on the line from Dubai. We need you. Push it. Victoria, is everything okay? Is Amara? Victoria watched the screen. Watched her daughter dip an apple slice into a small dish of honey that Marcus had set out. Watched Amara laugh at something Marcus had said. A real laugh, from her belly. The kind Victoria hadn't heard in almost a year. Priya, Victoria said quietly. Everything is okay. For the first time in 11 months. Push the call. Tell Sinclair I'll fly to Dubai myself next week if I have to. But right now, I'm not moving. She hung up. She kept watching. At 2:03 p.m., Amara took Marcus's hand and led him to the music room. There was a piano in the music room, a Steinway that Elijah had bought Amara for her 4th birthday, 6 months before he died. Amara had not touched it since the funeral. She walked up to it now. She put one small brown hand on the closed lid. She looked at Marcus. Marcus knelt down beside her. "Your daddy play this?" Amara nodded. "He teach you?" Amara nodded again. Her lower lip trembled. "You want to show me what he taught you?" Amara shook her head, hard, fast, panicked. Marcus nodded, slow, understanding. "That's okay. That's okay, little sister. We don't gotta play it. We can just look at it. Sometimes just looking at something is enough for one day." He sat down on the piano bench. He didn't open the lid. He just sat there. Amara climbed up next to him. They sat there for 11 minutes. Then Marcus, very quietly, almost under his breath, started to hum. It was a lullaby, an old one, a song Victoria hadn't heard in almost a year. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Victoria, who was still sitting on the floor of her office, still watching the monitor, still with the imprint of the hardwood on her forehead, froze. Because that was Elijah's song. That was the song Elijah had made up his own harmony for. That was the song he had sung to Amara every single night from the day she was born to the night before he got on that C-17. That was the song Victoria had never, not once, sung to her daughter after he died, because she didn't think she could get through it without breaking. And on the security monitor, Amara Ellington, 5 years old, purple pajamas, cartoon rockets, crescent scar, put her small brown head against the shoulder of a homeless black veteran she had known for 6 hours and started to cry. Not screaming crying, the other kind. The kind that means something is finally coming out. Victoria ran up the stairs so fast she lost one of her heels on the landing. She flung open the music room door, and Marcus looked up, calm, unstartled, and put one finger against his lips. Amara was asleep, curled against him, tears drying on her cheeks. Tembo the elephant tucked under her arm. Victoria stood in the doorway. She couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Marcus mouthed, "Give her a minute." Victoria nodded. She stepped back into the hallway. She stood there for 10 minutes. When Marcus finally came out, carrying Amara like she weighed nothing, Victoria led him silently to her daughter's bedroom. He laid her down. He pulled the blanket over her. He set Tembo beside her. He touched 2 fingers to his own lips and then to Amara's forehead. A corpsman's blessing, though Victoria didn't know that yet. Then he walked out and closed the door. In the hallway, Victoria finally spoke. "That song. How did you know that song?" Marcus's face didn't change. "Ma'am, can we go downstairs? There's something I need to tell you, and I don't want her to hear it, even in her sleep." They went to the kitchen. Marcus sat at the marble island. Victoria stood. "How did you know that song, Marcus?" Marcus looked at his hands. "Ma'am, sit down. Tell me. Sit down, please." She sat. Marcus reached into the inside pocket of his camo jacket. He pulled out a small laminated photograph, bent at the corners, faded from being carried for years. He slid it across the marble. Victoria picked it up. It was a photograph of a little boy, maybe 7 years old, bald from chemo, missing his 2 front teeth, grinning like sunshine. And standing next to him, kneeling in navy scrubs, was Marcus, younger, whole, no gray in his beard yet. Victoria didn't recognize the boy. "Who is this?" she asked. His name is Jamal Carter, Marcus said quietly. He was 7 when I met him. Congenital heart defect, same one your baby has. I was working the pediatric ICU at Bethesda when he came in. His mama was a Navy widow. His daddy had died in Kandahar the year before. He was scared of his own heartbeat, ma'am, same as your Amara. Victoria's hands started to shake. He used to ask me to sing to him before his surgeries. He didn't like the pre-op drugs, made him feel like he was drowning, so I'd sing to him instead. And the song he asked for, every single time, was You Are My Sunshine. Because his daddy used to sing it to him. His daddy who died. Just like your baby's daddy. Marcus paused. Jamal survived his surgery, ma'am. He's 12 years old now. He lives with his mama in Norfolk, and every year, on the anniversary of his surgery, he sends me a letter. Because I never left his hospital room for 4 days. Not once. And when he woke up, I was still there. Marcus tapped the photograph. That's how I knew the song, ma'am. Not because I knew your husband, not because somebody told me. Because kids with hurt hearts, they teach you what they need. If you're listening. And I've been listening for a long, long time. Victoria was crying. Silent. Steady. The kind of crying that happens when a wall you didn't know you were carrying finally falls down. Marcus, she said. Why are you homeless? Marcus took a long breath. Because after Denise and Malik died, I couldn't be inside anymore. Walls felt like coffins. I got a VA disability check every month. I don't spend it. I send most of it to Denise's mama in Mobile. She's raising her sister's grandkids now. I keep just enough to eat. The rest, I give away. And I walk. I walk from city to city, and I show up where I'm needed. He looked up. Ma'am, this morning, when I woke up on that bench, I asked God to send me somebody who needed help today. 2 hours later, you pulled up in that black SUV. I didn't know it was going to be a billionaire. I didn't know it was going to be a little girl with the same heart defect as Jamal. I just knew, the second I saw your face, that today was the day. Victoria couldn't speak. Marcus stood up. Ma'am, my 12 hours are almost up. I should go. No. The word came out of Victoria before she could stop it. Marcus looked at her. Ma'am, no, please. Marcus, please don't go. Marcus Boone did not go. Victoria had a guest wing prepared, a wing that had never been used because she never had guests. Marcus refused the guest wing. He asked quietly if he could sleep on the couch in the sitting room next to Amara's bedroom. In case she wakes up, he said. Sometimes kids with heart trauma, they wake up at the same time every night. Their body remembers the surgery even when their brain doesn't. If she wakes up and you're not there, I want to be close. Victoria stared at him. How did you know she wakes up at the same time every night? 3:47 a.m.? Marcus said gently. Victoria's mouth fell open. How? That's the time on the little clock on her nightstand. It's the only clock in her whole room. Everything else in there is digital. Somebody set that little analog clock and left it there. But the batteries are dead. It stopped. At 3:47. That's the time she woke up from her surgery, ma'am. Isn't it? Victoria nodded, tears running down her face again. That's the time her father's plane hit the water. Marcus closed his eyes. Lord have mercy. Then he opened them. I'll take the couch. At 3:47 a.m., Amara screamed. It was the same scream she screamed every night. A small, sharp animal sound. Not a word, just terror. Victoria, who slept with the baby monitor turned up to maximum, was already halfway down the hallway when she saw Marcus. He was already in Amara's room. He had opened the door quietly. He had not turned on the lights. He was sitting on the floor beside her bed. He was not touching her. He was just there. Victoria stopped in the doorway. Amara was sitting up, panting, eyes wide, hands pressed against her scar. Marcus spoke very softly. Little sailor, your body isn't the enemy. That mark on your chest, it's proof you're brave. It's proof you stayed. We don't run from the parts of us that hurt. We put a hand on them, and we hold on. Amara stared at him. Her breathing slowed. Say it with me, little sister. That mark is proof I stayed. Amara's lips moved. No sound came out. That's okay. You don't have to say it out loud. You just have to know it. Your daddy, he stayed too. He stayed in that plane so it wouldn't hit the ships in the harbor. He stayed so other daddies could come home. Your daddy was brave, little sister, and you are made of him. Amara, very slowly, took her hands off her scar and reached out. Marcus took her hand. You want me to sit here till you go back to sleep? Amara nodded. Okay, I'm gonna sit right here. I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not the next day. You go to sleep, little sailor. I got the watch. Amara lay back down. In 4 minutes, she was asleep. Marcus stayed on the floor. Victoria stayed in the doorway. She stood there until the sun came up. At 7:15 a.m., Victoria's private line rang. She picked it up in the kitchen. Marcus was upstairs, still on the floor of Amara's bedroom. It was Dr. Rachel Okonkwo. Victoria, I'm sorry to call so early. I got your text at midnight. I have to ask you something. Go ahead. The man you hired, Marcus Boone, Navy corpsman, 2 tours. You said he was homeless in Atlanta? Yes. There was a very long pause on the line. Victoria, sit down. Why? Sit down. Victoria sat. Marcus Boone saved my son's life. Victoria couldn't speak. In 2015, my son Kwame, he was 3 months old. We were living in Norfolk. My husband was deployed. Kwame stopped breathing in his car seat. I was driving on I-64. I pulled over on the shoulder. I was screaming. I didn't know CPR on an infant. A man ran across 4 lanes of highway, a Navy corpsman, in his uniform. He did infant CPR for 11 minutes until the ambulance came. He saved my baby's life. And then, before I could even thank him, he walked back across the highway and disappeared. Victoria was crying again. He never gave me his name, Victoria. I spent 2 years trying to find him. I called the Navy, I called Bethesda, I called every hospital in Norfolk. Nobody knew who he was. He didn't want to be found. But when you texted me last night, his name is Marcus Boone, Navy corpsman. I called an old friend at Bethesda. She pulled the records. Victoria, it's him. It's the same man. Victoria whispered, Rachel, he saved my son, and now he's saving your daughter. Victoria, I don't know what you did to deserve this man showing up in your life, but whatever you do, don't let him disappear again. Please. Victoria hung up the phone. She walked upstairs. Marcus was still on the floor of Amara's bedroom. Amara was still asleep. Her small brown hand was tangled in the sleeve of his camo jacket. Marcus looked up. Victoria looked at him for a long time. Marcus, she said, did you ever save a baby on the side of I-64? In 2015? Marcus's face didn't move, but something behind his eyes did. Ma'am, I've done a lot of things. I don't count them. I don't remember them by dates. His name was Kwame. His mother was Rachel Okonkwo. She's my daughter's cardiologist. Marcus closed his eyes. Lord have mercy. For the second time in 2 days. Marcus, how many lives have you saved? He opened his eyes. Ma'am, that's not the question. Then what's the question? He looked down at Amara. He gently untangled her hand from his sleeve. He tucked it under Tembo the elephant. Then he looked up at Victoria. The question is, how many did I not save? Because those are the ones I carry. That's why I walk, ma'am. Not because I'm ashamed of the ones I saved. Because I'm still trying to earn back the ones I lost. Victoria knelt down beside him on the floor of her daughter's bedroom. Marcus, Denise and Malik, that wasn't your fault. You were saving other people. Marcus's eyes filled up, but he didn't cry. I know, ma'am. In my head, I know. But my heart doesn't know yet. Victoria reached out, slowly, and she put her hand on his. Then stay, she whispered. Stay until your heart learns. 6 weeks later, Amara Ellington played the piano. She played it for the first time since her father died. She played You Are My Sunshine. She played it badly. She was 5, and her father had only taught her the first 8 bars before he got on that plane. But she played it. Marcus stood in the doorway of the music room and cried without shame. Victoria filmed it on her phone. She sent the video to Dr. Rachel Okonkwo, who watched it in her office and had to cancel her next 3 patients because she couldn't stop weeping. She sent it to her CFO, Priya Kapoor, who forwarded it to her sister in Mumbai without explanation. She did not post it online. It wasn't for the world. It was for one person. She sent it to Marcus's mother-in-law in Mobile, Denise's mother, a woman named Miss Loretta Boone, who Marcus still sent money to every month, who Marcus had not spoken to in 3 years because she reminded him too much of the daughter she'd lost. Victoria had tracked her down. Miss Loretta called Marcus that same night. They talked for 4 hours. At the end of the call, Miss Loretta said, "Baby, you come home. You come home to Mobile. You bring that little girl and her mama with you if you want. But you come home, Marcus. Malik would want his daddy to come home." Marcus said he'd think about it. He didn't go to Mobile that week, but he did unpack his duffel bag in the guest wing. For the first time in 3 years. Part 11. The Board Meeting. 3 months after Marcus arrived, Victoria walked into the Ellington Aerospace boardroom for the quarterly meeting. She was 15 minutes late. The board, 12 men and 2 women, most of them white, All of them, accustomed to Victoria arriving 30 minutes early, stared as she walked in wearing jeans, a sweatshirt, and no makeup. She was carrying a stack of papers and holding the hand of a small black girl in a purple dress with cartoon rockets on it. Priya Kapoor stood up. "Vic, is everything—" "Everything is fine, Priya. Amara wanted to come to work with me today." "Amara, this is the board." "Board, this is my daughter Amara. She's 5. Say hi, baby." Amara, quiet, still shy, but no longer silent, said, "Hi." The board said hi back. Victoria sat down at the head of the table. Amara climbed into her lap. "I know this is unusual," Victoria said. "I know I've never brought her here before. I'm going to be doing a lot of things differently from now on. I'm sure some of you have noticed." Sinclair, the Dubai board member on the screen, cleared his throat. "Victoria, about the Q3 numbers." "Sinclair, the Q3 numbers are fine. We're up 11%. Priya will walk you through them."
"I want to talk about something else."
She slid the stack of papers to the center of the table. "I'm starting a foundation. It's called the Elijah Ellington Foundation. It's going to focus on 3 things. 1. Pediatric cardiac care for children of veterans. 2. Housing and reintegration for homeless veterans, specifically corpsmen and combat medics. 3. Mental health services for Gold Star families. I'm putting $100 million into it to start. Priya has the paperwork." The board was silent. "I'm also stepping back from day-to-day operations. Priya is going to be interim CEO. I'll remain chairman. I'll be back full-time when Amara starts 2nd grade. Until then, I need to be a mother, not a CEO." Sinclair opened his mouth. Victoria held up her hand. "I'm not asking, Sinclair. I'm telling." Amara, who had been quietly looking at the papers on the table, looked up at her mother and whispered, "Mommy, is Mr. Marcus going to be at the foundation?" Victoria smiled. "Yes, baby. Mr. Marcus is going to run the Veterans Housing Program. He starts on Monday." Amara nodded, satisfied. She went back to looking at the papers. Priya Kapoor, who had known Victoria for 11 years, who had watched her build the company from nothing, who had held her hand at Elijah's funeral, smiled the biggest smile she had ever smiled in that boardroom. "Motion to approve the CEO's proposed restructuring." "Second," said someone at the far end of the table. "All in favor?" 14 hands went up. Sinclair's went up last, but it went up. 6 months after Marcus first sat down on the floor of Amara's bedroom, they drove to Mobile. Victoria drove. Amara sat in the back, in a booster seat, with Tembo the elephant. Marcus sat in the passenger seat. His duffel bag was in the trunk. Not because he was leaving, because he was going to see his family for the first time in 3 years. Miss Loretta Boone lived in a small yellow house on the west side of Mobile. There was a live oak tree in the front yard. A tire swing hung from one of the branches. A little garden of collard greens and tomatoes and okra ran along the side of the house. Miss Loretta was standing on the porch when they pulled up. 68 years old. Silver hair pulled back in a bun. A face like a Bible. Marcus got out of the car. He walked up the path. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "Mama Retta," he said. Miss Loretta came down the steps. She was crying already. "My baby," she whispered. "My baby came home." She held him for a very long time. Amara, who had gotten out of the car and was standing next to Victoria, looked up. "Mommy," she whispered, "is that Mr. Marcus's mama?" Kind of, baby. It's the mama of Mr. Marcus's wife. She's like Mr. Marcus's mama-in-law. Amara nodded. Then she took Victoria's hand and walked forward. Miss Loretta looked down at her. "You must be Amara," she said. Amara nodded. Miss Loretta knelt down, slowly because her knees were bad, and looked the little girl in the eye. "Baby, my grandson Malik would have loved you. He was 5 once, too. He liked purple, just like you." Amara looked at her for a long moment. Then Amara, quiet, careful Amara, who had once refused to hug a stranger for 11 months, put both arms around Miss Loretta's neck. Miss Loretta closed her eyes, and Marcus, standing behind them, put his hand over his mouth. Because his son Malik used to hug his grandmother exactly like that. 1 year after Victoria pulled into that gas station, she stood on the stage at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. The Elijah Ellington Foundation was celebrating its first anniversary. In 1 year, they had housed 318 homeless veterans. They had funded pediatric cardiac surgeries for 47 children of active duty and veteran families. They had built a residential mental health facility for Gold Star mothers in Norfolk. Marcus Boone ran the housing program. He had an office in Atlanta. He wore a suit sometimes, not always, and he still walked more than he drove. He still sent money to Mama Retta every month. He still visited her every 6 weeks. He was writing a book, a short one, about being a corpsman. Denise's diary was quoted in the first chapter, with Mama Retta's blessing. He no longer slept on benches. He no longer flinched when someone hugged him. He still cried sometimes when he heard "You Are My Sunshine." But he cried the good kind of crying now, the kind that means something is finally healing. Victoria walked up to the microphone. Amara, 6 years old now, in a purple dress holding Tembo the elephant, sat in the front row next to Marcus, and next to Miss Loretta, and next to Dr. Rachel Okonkwo, and next to Rachel's son Kwame, who was 10 now and wanted to be a Navy corpsman, just like the man who had saved his life. Victoria looked out at the audience. "A year ago," she said, "my mother's voice was the loudest voice in my head. She used to tell me, 'Trust is a liability. Verify everything.' She was a great woman. She survived things I will never understand. And she taught me how to build an empire." Victoria paused. "But she did not teach me how to save my daughter. A year ago, I drove to a gas station and I met a homeless man. Everything about him should have scared me. My background check firm would have told me not to hire him. My security detail would have told me to drive away. My mother, if she had been alive, would have told me I had lost my mind. But there was another voice, older, quieter. The voice of the child I had been before the world taught me to be afraid. That voice said, 'This is the one.' I listened to that voice, and that man walked into my house, and he sat on the floor of my daughter's bedroom, and he did not perform. He did not sell himself. He did not try to be qualified. He was just present. And my daughter, who had not spoken more than 4 words in a row for 11 months, spoke to him. She sang for him. She played piano for him. She woke up in the middle of the night for 11 months screaming, and the first night he slept in my house, she woke up and reached for his hand." Victoria's voice cracked. "Ladies and gentlemen, the safest person in the room is not always the one with the best resume. Sometimes the safest person is the one who has already been broken. Because that person has stopped performing. That person is just real. My mother was wrong about one thing. Trust is not a liability. Trusting the wrong people is a liability. But trusting the right people, trusting the quiet, broken, humble people who are hiding in plain sight in every gas station and every bus stop and every VA hospital in America. That is the greatest asset any of us will ever have. Tonight, I want to thank the man who taught me that. His name is Marcus Boone. He is a Navy corpsman. He served 2 tours in Iraq. He lost his wife Denise and his son Malik in a house fire in 2021. And instead of letting that grief destroy him, he walked out of his front door and gave the rest of his life to strangers. He saved my daughter's cardiologist's son on the side of a highway in 2015. He saved my daughter's soul on the floor of her bedroom in 2025. And he saved my life without ever once saying a word about it. Marcus, would you please stand up? Marcus, sitting in the front row in a navy suit, tie slightly crooked because Amara had helped him with it, slowly stood up. The Kennedy Center rose to its feet. 2,000 people applauded a man who had, for 3 years, refused to sleep indoors because he did not think he deserved a roof. Amara stood up next to him. She reached up and took his hand. Marcus looked down at her. She whispered, "You got the watch, Mr. Marcus." Marcus Boone, hospital corpsman, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, looked down at the little girl he had once believed he could not help. "Yes, ma'am," he whispered back. "I got the watch." The applause did not stop for 4 minutes. That night, back at the hotel in Washington, Amara fell asleep in the middle of the king-sized bed between Victoria and Marcus. Victoria and Marcus were not a couple. They had never been a couple. They had never even discussed being a couple. Victoria was still in some deep and quiet place, married to Elijah. Marcus was still in some deep and quiet place, married to Denise. But they were family. That is a different word, and it is a bigger word. At 3:47 a.m., the time Amara had once woken up screaming every single night, Victoria opened her eyes. Amara was still asleep, breathing softly, face pressed into Tembo the elephant. Marcus was awake, sitting up, watching the little girl breathe. He looked over at Victoria. "She hasn't screamed at 3:47 in 6 months," he whispered. "I know," Victoria whispered back, "but I still wake up at 3:47, in case." "I know." They lay there in the dark for a long time. Then Victoria whispered, "Marcus, thank you." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Ma'am, you saved me too. You know that, right?" "I know." "I was walking to die. I didn't know it, but I was. And you pulled up in that SUV and you said, 'I'll pay you $1,000 to watch my daughter.' And I said yes because I was tired. I was so tired, Victoria. And I thought, one more day, one more little person to help, and then I'll lay down. But you didn't lay down." "No, ma'am, because your baby held my hand, and your baby said, 'Can you sit with me?' And when a little sailor asks a corpsman to sit with her, he doesn't get to lay down. He sits." Victoria was crying again, quietly, so she wouldn't wake Amara. "Marcus, stay. Stay with us. Not in the guest wing, not as an employee. As family. Please." Marcus reached across the sleeping little girl. He took Victoria's hand. "Ma'am," he said, "I never left." 6 years later, Amara Ellington, 11 years old, straight-A student, first chair violin at Westminster Schools, no more nightmares. wrote an essay for her English class. The assignment was, write about the most important person in your life who is not a member of your immediate family. Amara wrote about Marcus Boone. The essay was 3 pages long. Her teacher, a woman named Mrs. Chen, read it and had to step out of the classroom. Mrs. Chen took the essay home and read it to her husband. Her husband, who was a producer at CBS Sunday Morning, called Victoria Ellington the next day. 6 months later, CBS Sunday Morning aired a 15-minute segment titled "The Corpsman on the Bench: How a Homeless Veteran Saved a Billionaire's Daughter," and vice versa. The segment ended with Amara, now 12, playing "You Are My Sunshine" on the Steinway her father had bought her. And with Marcus Boone, in the audience, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief that had belonged to his son Malik. The segment was viewed 68 million times. Donations to the Elijah Ellington Foundation quadrupled overnight. But Marcus Boone did not watch the segment. Marcus Boone was in Mobile that Sunday, at Miss Loretta's kitchen table, eating cornbread and collard greens, and listening to Mama Retta tell a story about Denise as a little girl. He didn't need to watch the segment. He had already lived it. And he was, at long last, home.